Archaeologists, excavating the entrance of a prehistoric city in northern China, found a narrow opening beneath the fortifications. The passage did not lead into a house. It did not end beneath the city gate. It continued under the defensive walls and reached beyond the settlement. Then another tunnel appeared, and another. By the time the system was mapped, researchers had identified 6 underground passages beneath a stone city built more than 4,000 years ago. Some tunnels descended almost 6 meters below the surface. Several were tall enough for a person to move through upright. One ran from a protected gateway to the land outside the city. Another connected directly with the surrounding moat. The passages were not random caves. They followed the city's defensive layout and linked places that would have mattered during an attack. Above them stood walls, trenches, fortified gates, and projecting defenses. Below them was a hidden route through the same battlefield. The city is called Houchengzui. It was built between roughly 4,500 and 4,200 years ago, when many communities in northern China were changing from farming settlements into powerful fortified centers. Its builders planned for danger on the surface, but they also prepared another world beneath it. Houchengzui lies in Qingxuihe County in Inner Mongolia, on the northern side of the Hun River. The site covers about 1.38 million square meters, more than 300 acres. From the air, its ancient layout forms a broad oval across the landscape. The settlement contained an inner city and a larger outer city. Walls divided protected zones. Trenches surrounded important approaches. Gateways forced anyone entering to pass through carefully controlled spaces. For years, those defenses were already enough to make the site exceptional. Then excavation revealed the tunnels. If discoveries that reveal forgotten cities beneath the ground are why you are here, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because Houchengzui was not simply surrounded by a wall. It was designed as a layered machine for controlling movement. Large-scale excavation began in 2019. Archaeologists first focused on the city gates, surrounding trenches, walls, platforms, building foundations, and other features visible beneath the soil. The main gate was not a simple break in the wall. It was protected by additional enclosed spaces, often described as barbicans. An attacker who entered could be trapped inside a narrow area, while defenders watched from several directions. Beyond the main gate stood another fortified gateway. Outside that was a further defensive zone. Bastions projected from parts of the walls, allowing guards to observe or defend the sides rather than facing only forward. Moats and trenches added more obstacles. Every layer slowed movement. Every turn reduced the advantage of a large attacking force. The city's builders understood that a wall alone was not enough. A gate was usually the weakest part of a fortified settlement. People, animals, carts and supplies had to pass through it, which meant the entrance could never be sealed permanently. Houchengzui answered that weakness with depth. An enemy approaching the city would meet trenches, outer defenses, restricted entrances, inner gates, and defenders positioned above. The underground passages added a final layer that attackers might never see. 6 tunnels have been identified in the explored areas. They occur at different depths, from around 1.5 meters to roughly 6 meters underground. Their sizes vary, but several sections are about the height of an adult and wide enough for a person carrying equipment to pass through. The ceilings were shaped into arches. That form helped distribute the weight of earth and stone above the passage. The tunnels also appear in a radial arrangement, extending through important parts of the settlement, rather than remaining inside one small area. One route led from the inner fortified gateway to the outside of the city. Another reached the moat. Other passages intersected or connected with the defensive system. That placement immediately raised the same question for every researcher looking at the plan. Why did a Neolithic city need secret routes beneath its own walls? The simplest answer is movement during conflict. Defenders could carry messages, tools, food, or weapons without crossing exposed ground. A small group might leave the city secretly and attack an enemy from behind. People could enter or escape after the visible gates were blocked. Supplies could move between protected zones. The tunnel linked to the moat may have helped workers reach water or maintain part of the defensive system. But no surviving inscription explains the design. Houchengzui existed before writing became common in the region. The builders left architecture, artifacts, graves, and soil layers. They did not leave a manual describing how the tunnels were used. That uncertainty matters because the same passage can serve several purposes. A military tunnel can also transport food. An escape route can also act as a hidden entrance. A connection to a moat can help with drainage, maintenance, water access, or defense. Its use may have changed over time. The people who built the first section may not have been the same people who enlarged or repaired it later. The underground network was part of a city that developed across generations. Building it required far more than digging a hole. Workers had to decide where each route would begin and where it would emerge. They had to pass beneath walls without causing collapse. They needed to understand the depth of the foundations above them. The arched ceilings had to remain stable under pressure. Loose earth had to be removed and carried away. Ventilation and lighting were necessary while people worked underground. Simple lamps could provide light, but smoke would gather in enclosed passages. The workers needed openings, shafts, or a carefully managed flow of air. Every meter removed from beneath the city created another structural risk. The builders solved those problems without modern surveying instruments, powered drills, or reinforced concrete. They relied on hand tools, repeated measurement, local knowledge, and organized labor. Houchengzui belonged to the late Neolithic world, associated with the Longshan period. Across parts of northern China, communities were growing larger and more unequal. Some settlements remained small villages. Others developed walls, elite objects, specialized workshops, ceremonial spaces, and evidence of organized authority. Competition over farmland, water, trade routes, animals, and political power may have increased the need for defense. Houchengzui stood near routes connecting the northern frontier with communities closer to the Yellow River. Its location could bring exchange and wealth. It could also bring conflict. Archaeologists have found pottery, stone tools, bone objects, and jade at the site. These materials reveal ordinary work and social difference. Pottery stored food, carried liquids, and served meals. Stone and bone tools supported farming, hunting, construction, and craft production. Jade required skilled shaping and often carried status or ritual importance. The presence of these objects inside a heavily defended city suggests a community with more than temporary shelters. People lived, worked, stored resources, and organized their surroundings there. The settlement's size also raises questions about leadership. Someone had to coordinate the construction of walls, gates, trenches, and underground routes. Stone had to be gathered and moved. Earth had to be cut, piled, and compacted. Workers had to be fed. Plans had to be remembered across seasons. A project this large could not depend on one household acting alone. It required cooperation, authority, or both. That does not prove Houchengzui had a king. No palace or royal inscription has identified a named ruler. Power may have been shared among elite families, military leaders, ritual specialists, or councils, but the city shows that its population could organize labor on a scale far beyond a village. The defenses also reveal fear. People do not build several gates, moats, bastions, and hidden passages unless they believe an attack is possible. The threat may have come from neighboring settlements competing for land. It may have come from groups moving through the frontier. Conflict could involve raids for animals and food, rather than armies trying to conquer the entire city. Even a short raid could be devastating. Stored grain could be burned. Livestock could be taken. Craft workers could be captured. A defensive system allowed residents to protect the resources that carried them through winter. The tunnels may have been most valuable when the visible city seemed trapped. Imagine defenders watching dust rise beyond the walls. The main gate is closed. People gather inside protected courtyards. Food and weapons must reach another section without crossing open ground. A runner enters a passage beneath the gate. The tunnel is narrow and dark. Its walls block every sound from the surface. Minutes later, the runner emerges beyond the threatened area. That scene is possible. It is not proven. Archaeology can reveal the route, but not the exact emergency that once sent someone through it. Houchengzui is sometimes described as an underground city. That is misleading. The known passages were not a second settlement filled with houses, temples, and large living quarters. They formed a tunnel network beneath a major fortified city. There is no evidence that the entire population lived underground. There is also no proof that every passage was secret from everyone outside the walls. Some entrances may have been concealed. Others may have been controlled but visible. The tunnels did not stretch for hundreds of kilometers. 6 have been identified in the excavated areas, and their full extent is still being studied. The real discovery does not need exaggeration. A city more than 4,000 years old included an integrated underground system connected to its gates, moat, and defensive plan. That alone changes how we imagine Neolithic urban design. Houchengzui also resembles other early stone cities in northern China, especially Shimao farther south. Shimao became famous for its massive walls, fortified gateways, carved stone, jade, workshops, and evidence of human sacrifice. The two sites were not identical, but their similarities suggest contact across regions. Ideas about gates, stone construction, defense, status, and ritual may have traveled with people and goods. This was not a landscape of isolated villages waiting for civilization to arrive from somewhere else. Communities were already experimenting with cities, fortifications, specialized labor, and political power. The gates at Houchengzui even resemble defensive forms that appeared later in the Central Plains. That does not mean one unbroken design survived unchanged for centuries. It suggests that early builders were already testing solutions that later societies would develop on a much larger scale. Control the entrance. Slow the enemy. Create several defensive zones. Move people through protected routes. Turn architecture into an advantage. The city eventually declined. The exact reason remains uncertain. Climate change may have affected water and farming. Trade routes may have shifted. Political alliances may have broken apart. Conflict may have damaged the settlement. People may simply have moved toward new centers of power. Without written records, the end of Houchengzui must be reconstructed from abandonment layers, broken objects, repaired walls, and changes in occupation. The tunnels may contain part of that answer. Deposits on their floors could reveal when they were last used. Charcoal could provide dates. Footpaths and repairs might show which routes remained active longest. Collapsed sections could preserve tools or objects left during maintenance. Sediment connected with the moat may reveal whether water entered one passage naturally or was directed there deliberately. Future excavation could discover more exits, side chambers, stairs, or blocked connections. The most important part of the site may still be underground. For now, Houchengzui presents a city built on 2 plans. The first was visible. Stone walls rose around the settlement. Gates controlled the roads. Trenches cut across the approaches. Bastions allowed defenders to watch the edges. The second plan was hidden. Passages ran beneath the defenses. One crossed beyond the walls. Another reached the moat. Others connected beneath the ground in a network whose complete purpose has not been recovered. More than 4,000 years ago, the people of Houchengzui looked at their city and imagined the ways it could be attacked. Then they reshaped the land above and below to survive. Their houses disappeared. Their names were forgotten. The walls collapsed into low ridges, but beneath them, the tunnels remained. And every passage still leads toward the same unanswered question. What were the builders of Houchengzui preparing for? The next investigation is waiting on screen now.